Okay, you know the deal. If you're listening on demand, we do like to wait for a minute or two, mostly just a second or two, for the sound to come through our chat room. And you can always join us live at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com/live to listen every single day of the week at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can sign up for free. We don't spam you. We don't spy on you. We don't harass you. And it's free, so you could join our wonderful, knowledgeable baseball insider chat room, and the sound is good already, and I will thank goodness for that, because today is a huge show. We have a huge show today, so I hope you get your pens and pencils ready. James K., great to see you from the state of Wisconsin. Maine Nick is here. I'm sure the weather is nice and cold over there. Chris Gallo in sunny Florida. Debbie Gallo, nice to see you. Danny Fuller, go get Boston Paul. I don't know what he's doing. He never shows up to the podcast anymore, so I'm about ready to write him off as a friend if he doesn't get his booty in here today. Mal Palantina are here, and now we can get the show going because it's a very special day today. We are going to cover... I've been telling you for weeks now how shallow the outfield position is. So I've done my due diligence here, and I have put together 5 mid to late round outfielder targets for each and every fantasy Roto category. We're talking runs, home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, and batting average. Good morning to Laura. Good morning to King Turd. Good morning to Eddie and Teresa Heckman. Great to see you all in the chat room. Now we have 2 minutes a player here, so we're going to get started right now. Danny Fuller, I hope the sound is good for you. I'm telling you to go get your friend Boston Paul. He doesn't show up to the chat room anymore. I guess he's too smart for us now, but it would be nice to see his face in the chat room. Let's get started with the runs category, and we start the day with Alex Verdugo. I know he never really got... First of all, when you're traded for Mookie Betts, the fans tend to not like you that much. So when he arrived in Boston, I know there was tons of Red Sox fans that did not appreciate Alex Verdugo. His ADP currently is 315. Now, these players that I'm going to go over, I will also mention other categories. They're not just one-trick ponies all the time. And Alex Verdugo could score you 80 runs with the New York Yankees. He was acquired, from the rival Red Sox in December. It's strange with this guy because he does hit good. He finished in the 49th percentile last year in average exit velocity, but he was just 29th percentile in hard hit rate. That's okay. We're not depending on his home runs. We're not depending on his stolen bases. We're talking about runs right now, but Alex Verdugo is also good for batting average. He finished last season with the 264 average, but we're expecting that to go up a little bit. 273 is what RotoWire projects for Alex Verdugo. You're going to get 65 to 70 runs, and his ADP 315. That's round 30. Okay, good morning to Tommy Johnson. How's the sound? Everything is good for you. Nice to see all of you in the chat room today. Too bad Boston Paul doesn't show up anymore. All right, the next guy on the list for runs is Steven Kwan, 26-year-old outfielder for the Cleveland Guardians. Also great for batting average. He also steals some bases, so you're going to get about 15 stolen bases from Steven Kwan, a 280 batting average, 75 to 80 runs scored. Now, nobody in baseball strikes out at a lower rate than Steven Kwan. His career strikeout percentage is 10%, so this keeps him right atop the Guardians lineup. Now, he scored 182 runs over the past 2 seasons, which makes him 20th in the majors in that span. He's only been caught stealing 3 times in 24 steal attempts last year, so you can expect double-digit steals from this guy, but most importantly, the runs, we're talking 75 to 80 runs. Add that to a 280 batting average. He's ranked 138th overall. His ADP is way lower at 227. So Stephen Kwan is a great late round, not necessarily late round, 227. You're talking round 20. But we're talking outfielders here where the cliff just goes off very steep at one point in the draft. I'm telling you, you'll agree with me. As soon as you get your first draft underway, you're going to say, holy moly, was she right? All these outfielders available until they're not available. So, the next guy on the list for runs, we're talking Brandon Nimmo here, ranked 124th overall at RotoWire. His ADP is currently 196. Last year, Brandon Nimmo, 274 batting average with 89 runs scored. You are not going to find more runs from a player that late in the draft. Plus, his 278 batting average, 19 or 20 home runs you're going to get from this guy. It's a great deal for Brandon Nimmo, ADP 196. Last year, he did set a career high in fly ball rate. 39.2% fly ball. His barrel rate was 9.5%, and his hard hit rate was 47.7%, all career highs. It's the second straight year that he played in over 150 games. He's not a great base stealer, but he has 3 stolen bases in each of the past 2 seasons. But I'll tell you what, if you're looking for runs deeper in the draft, you can go ahead and count on Brandon Nimmo. The fourth guy that we're talking about for runs scored here is your boy, Taylor Ward, 30-year-old outfielder for the Los Angeles Angels. Last year, 253 batting average, 14 home runs, 47 RBIs, 60 runs scored, and 4 stolen bases. Now, one of the reasons why he scored so few runs is because his season came to an early end in late July when he was hit in the face by a pitch that caused multiple fractures, required surgery. It wasn't great luck, okay? But in general, he doesn't stay healthy that great. It was the second time in the past 3 seasons that he's failed to reach 100 games played. So he was mostly healthy in 2022, and when he was healthy, he delivered 23 homers and an .833 OPS. He wasn't able to replicate that last year because of the hit by pitch in the face, but still, he had an above average bat when he played, a 107 weighted runs created plus with 14 home runs, 4 steals, and batted .253 as I told you before. Also, if you're in on-base percentage leagues, we don't really focus on that, but he did have a .335 on-base percentage last year, which is really good for his ADP, which is 221. You can count on 75 runs from this guy, a 270 batting average, double-digit homers, and I'm not talking just 10 here. I'm talking 20 homers from this guy. He has solid power and contact skills, so you can expect some runs late in the draft. Absolutely. SM King Turd says that Taylor Ward is streaky, but he did have a few good hot streaks, and that is true. Eddie, don't get your information from Wikipedia, okay? It's totally ridiculous at this point, but all right, let's move on. Also, Taylor Ward is the starting left fielder, so there you go. We have one more guy for targeting runs late in the draft, outfielders. 302 ADP, Sal Frelick. He was a first-round pick in 2021, and he made his MLB debut late July. He had 3 homers and an .870 OPS in his first 21 big league games, but he struggled the rest of the way. He finished with a .246 batting average, .341 on base percentage in 223 plate appearances. So think of that. 223 plate appearances is about half a season, okay? So we're talking about he didn't finish with great numbers, but he only played half of a season, and he does have good plate discipline. He walks 12.6% of the time, and he only strikes out 16.6% of the time. He plays well defensively, which will keep him in the lineup. Also, we're talking about a leadoff guy with a decent batting average, going to score 75 runs if he continues to get to play. But like I said, his defensive runs saved show that he was very good at his position, and that will keep him in the lineup near the top. He's only 23 years old. His ADP is 302. RotoWire has him ranked at 251 in Dynasty Leagues. I still like Sal Frelick. He plays for the Milwaukee Brewers. I'd love to hear from you, James K., our resident Milwaukee Brewers insider. Oh, give me a break, Boston Paul. Trying to get me to trade him Sal Frelick for Dansby Swanson, but this is because it's a keeper league, and you can't really keep Dansby when you drafted him in round 5 last year, and this year you have to keep him at round 4. No way. Sal Frelick sat on my roster in NL only last year the whole season. I kept these youngsters that I drafted just so I could keep them this year. So you all better watch out for me this year in National League only, because I'm going to crush all of you with my youngsters. Okay? There's your answer, Boston Paul. Wonderful to see you, Leonard Donaldson, Rotorius, Tommy Johnson, Merrill Harton. Great to see you aboard. Today is a very important show. Get your pens and pencils ready. We're moving on to... Oh, also another thing about Sal Frelick. He's good defensively. It looks like he's going to be the starting right fielder in Milwaukee, but you know they have very crowded outfield. However, the positive for Sal Frelick is that he plays each and every outfield position. So, just in case someone gets hurt, the opportunity could always be there for Sal Frelick. Thought I'd add that in, okay? For home runs, we're talking mid to late round draft targets, outfielders. For home runs, we start off with Teoscar Hernandez, who signed with the Dodgers, okay? Last year, was he with the Mariners last year? I think he was. Blue Jays, Mariners, one of these two teams. He hit 26 homers and 93 RBIs in 160 games during his contract year last year. He did have only a .740 OPS, which was the worst since his rookie campaign in 2016. And his strikeout rate is absolutely horrific. His strikeout rate, 31.1% of the time. We're talking serious strikeouts here for this guy. His ADP is 132, but he is ranked 100 overall by RotoWire. Anyway, we're talking about home runs mid to late rounds of the draft, and Teoscar Hernandez is absolutely capable of hitting at least 25 homers. He will also drive in a bunch of runs at 80 or so RBIs. Not so much for the runs scored, but he did steal 7 bases last year, which is interesting enough. And he is getting away from the pitching park in Seattle down to the Dodgers, where the lineup is strong, okay? We're talking Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. We're talking all kinds of strength here in this lineup. Teoscar Hernandez will put up better numbers than he did in Seattle, just straight based on the ballpark, okay? Now, like I said, ADP 132. We're talking about round 11, 10, 11 here. This is one of the lower, this is one of the earlier targets that I'm telling you, because I didn't my criteria was for picking these guys out, that they had to qualify at outfield, and they have to be projected for 425 at-bats, right? We don't want some dude in there that's like gonna not get full-time at-bats. So Those are the two criteria, outfield and 425 projected at bats. That way, you know you're getting a guy that's projected to play a good chunk of the season, right? So you can rely for Teoscar, you can rely on home runs, RBIs, maybe runs, and a handful of stolen bases. But you're not going to get a great batting average. Although it wasn't horrible. He finished last season with the .258 batting average, and that includes the fact that he strikes out 31% of the time, right? All right, good morning to everybody. Thanks for chatting. I'm not going to be able to talk with you a lot in the chat room, but I am paying attention to you. Also, for home run, we're talking home runs now, and you can't forget about Jorge Soler. I think the fact that he hasn't signed yet is keeping his draft price down. 141 ADP. Last year, he hit 36 home runs, drove in 75 runs, scored 77 times, even stole a base, right? He shaved 5 percentage points off his strikeout rate, and he still hit 15% barrel rate. That's excellent. He ranked in the top 10% of the league in barrel rate and slugging. Expected slugging was .532. So, as I mentioned, top 10% of the league. This guy absolutely is full of power, no doubt about it. He spent a lot of time at designated hitter, but he does retain outfield eligibility. He made 32 appearances in right field last season, 102 starts at DH. His defensive limitations could confine him to DH, but we don't care, right? We love Soler because he hits home runs. We don't count defense in fantasy. As long as he qualifies to start the season at outfield, that's where you put him. ADP 141. The next guy on the list for home runs, mid to late rounds, we're talking Marcell Ozuna. 40 bombs last year. He still batted a good .274 batting average, drove in 100 runs, and scored 84 times. We're talking about a guy on Atlanta here. Yes, he's 33 years old. He's only a DH. Maybe that's the problem. He's only a DH, I think. He shouldn't even be on my list. But, of course, here we go. His ADP is 140. Do I think that he should be drafted at 140 if he only qualifies at DH? Probably not. He's ranked 240 overall, but he did have a career-high 16.6% barrel rate and 49% hard hit rate. He had an expected batting average of .284. I just think that last year was probably a career year for Ozuna. I should take him off the list right this minute because unless he qualifies at outfield, he's not a great mid to late round target. This guy had a lot to prove to the fans last year. He had to prove that he was going to hit decent just to even get in the lineup. I'm sure if Atlanta had any other choice after his ridiculous problems with his wife, that they wouldn't have played him at all, but they owed him too much money. So, okay, all that aside, let's say if Ozuna qualifies in the outfield, you can bet he's worth an ADP of 140. The next guy on the list might be my favorite, even though he plays on the Oakland Athletics. Brent Rooker, 29-year-old outfielder for the Oakland Athletics. This guy went from being designated for assignment by the Royals in November of 2022 to becoming a bona fide breakout slugger for the Athletics in 2023. He was one of only 29 major leaguers to reach the 30-homer plateau, and he posted the 14th highest OPS among all qualified American League hitter. Now, we have a problem here with some strikeout situation, but I'll tell you what, he's going to absolutely pound the ball no matter who's around him in the lineup. Probably won't get very many RBIs because of the fact that he's in such a weak lineup, right? But he finished in the 93rd percentile last year in barrel rate and was in the 91st percentile in hard hit rate. This guy crushes the ball. He's a great late round target. His batting average is not going to kill you. It's also not going to help you. 242 batting average. But you can bank on this guy hitting 25 to 30 homers. His ADP is 294, okay? Brent Rooker, one of the best, okay? One of the best late round home run finds on my list. Here's another one. ADP 309, Giancarlo Stanton. He's going to crush you in batting average, but he's going to get you 75 RBIs. He's going to hit 25 to 30 homers. They say he was unlucky last season as he had the 9th highest gap between his ex-WOBA and actual WOBA, but his WOBA at 329 is still not anything special, so I don't know how much bad luck he had. We know that Giancarlo Stanton is a power hitter, but he is 34 years old. His walk rate last year fell below 10% for the first time since 2018 because, well, injury is a problem with this guy. Last year, he had hamstring issues. He is 34, and I'll keep pounding that in. But at some point in the draft, if you need home runs, you could say to yourself, well, there's always Giancarlo Stanton, who is ADP 309. We're moving on now to stolen bases. How's everybody doing in the chat room? Let me know if you have any questions. Malpal has a bold prediction. Trent Grisham hits more home runs than Stanton. And yes, that might be pretty darn bold, Malpal. Although, we're talking about a Padre fan here, okay? Leonard Donaldson wants to know if Scott Boras will steal some Super Bowl thunder with some signing announcements tomorrow. Let me have a sip of my coffee. Turn wants to name the odds. I feel you, dude. Okay. I don't know. Should I say my bold prediction? I think my bold prediction is that Imanaga is going to have a better season than Yamamoto. And Lenny tried to give me junk yesterday when I said that. He said, you never saw these guys. Nobody's ever seen these guys. But Yamamoto is showing up in like the top 10 starting pitchers in baseball. And honestly, he's never pitched one day in the majors. I get that he was excellent in Japan. And good stuff goes a long way. But let me tell you, it's very crazy acclimating to a new culture, a new language, a new ball, a new rules, a new everything. So we'll see how it works out. But I think there's as good of a chance as Imanaga pitching very well since all of the hype is not surrounding him like it is Yamamoto. And besides, those pesky Dodgers, I just can't get rid of them enough. Okay? So that's fine. I have personal biases here. Stolen bases. Here we go. Number 1 on the stolen base target list for outfielders late in your draft is Esteury Ruiz. 106 ADP, probably the earliest guy I'm going to talk about in these mid to late round targets, but this guy stole 67 bases last year. His ADP is 106. All right. Now, I'll tell you right now that this is a guy you have to pay attention to in your drafts. If their ADP changes drastically from this, which this guy very well could. You're talking 50 stolen bases projected from a guy in the 10th round. People are going to hop all over that. If he's available in the 10th round, you pound on that, okay? If he's not available in the 10th round, it means somebody probably drafted him a little early. He's 24 years old. He's also an Oakland Athletic. Hey, I got an idea for the Oakland guys. You go ahead and put Esteury Ruiz up right before Brent Rooker, and you're going to get a lot of runs scored by this Esteury guy, okay? Now, he set the AL record for steals by a rookie, 67 steals last year. Also set the record for the fewest runs scored by anybody with at least 60 steals. Oh, look at this. We have some great photo in the chat room. That's pretty cool. Is that a t-shirt, Danny? All right. Let me go back to what I'm doing here. I got sidetracked because there's a great world famous Dodger dog, the most popular ballpark cuisine in the league. Dodger dogs aren't that good, okay? They're just not, but okay. Let's see here. We have 60 steals. Okay, Ruiz's 47 runs scored with 60 or more steals was the lowest total since Dave Collins scored 59 times with 60 steals in 1984. Now, this guy Ruiz, he did miss a chunk of time recovering from a shoulder injury, okay? But he did come back, and he only hit .243 upon his return, but also hit 4 of his 5 home runs on the season in the second half. So he could steal this guy. I mean, the sky's the limit for Ruiz, right? If he's fully healthy, he could steal 80 bases, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay? He needs to be paired with the right roster construction. Now, I want to reiterate what I just said. Building a fantasy team is all about roster construction. This is not, especially when we're talking the mid to late round draft picks. I cannot stress enough how important it is to pay attention to your roster construction. We have 5 late round outfielder targets if you need help with your batting average. The one example I use constantly, but it really goes across the board here. If you have to draft Kyle Schwarber, you want to get a guy later to help you with your batting average, such as like a guy Luis Arias, right? You need to make sure that you make up for the Kyle Schwarber batting average, okay? And you can do that. So it's all about roster construction. This is not about, it's all about hitting your category targets, absolutely. But more importantly, it's about building a roster where you can reach your category targets. If you have Kyle Schwarber on your team, you're going to be extremely interested in the 5 late round outfield targets for batting average. Right now, we're talking stolen bases, so let's move on to Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran ranks 209 ADP, okay? Last year, he batted .295 with 8 home runs, 24 stolen bases. He wasn't even called, he was called up early, April, okay? They needed outfield depth because Adam Duvall had a wrist injury. So he actually turned out to be more than just depth. He became the regular center fielder for the Red Sox, and he steals bases, right? He was limited to only 102 games after missing almost a quarter of the season. He had season-ending surgery on his left big toe. So, one thing to know about this is that the pitchers have started to adjust to Jarren Duran. He does have some holes in his discipline at the plate. Through July 23rd, he batted .317 with a .367 on-base percentage. But after that, and this is why I say that the league started to figure him out, after that, July 23rd, he only batted .219 with a .269 on base percentage. So you have a tale of 2 worlds here with Jarren Duran. Now, he is expected to be ready for spring training, and he will be a regular in the outfield as long as he stays healthy. There's no doubting his stolen bases, and that's why we have him among the 5 mid to late round stolen base outfielders to target. 209 ADP, I'm in, right? Also, Now, RotoWire projects him to hit .272. But I just explained to you that is based on an overall, what we saw last year. He batted .295 overall last year. But I'll tell you what, pay attention. After July 23rd, he only hit .219. His batting average could fall anywhere, okay, along the lines. You could expect either a .219, a .295. You don't really know yet. Jarren Duran, tough one to figure out. If he doesn't make some adjustments this offseason while he's coming back from his surgery, he will be figured out and his batting average will be in peril. However, at 209 ADP, also, let me tell you, another one, Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman, he's actually out right now, okay? He's got a wrist injury, but he is expected to be healthy for spring training. That's part of the reason why his ADP is 171 overall. This guy played 51 games at second base, 48 games at shortstop, and 49 games in the outfield. So you get the position eligibility with Tommy Edman. St. Louis Cardinals, okay? He scored only 69 runs last year after 2 straight seasons scoring over 90 runs. He had 13 homers and 27 stolen bases along with 47 RBIs. That was all comparable to the year before. And he played in 16 fewer games. So, like I said, he split his playing time evenly between shortstop, second base, and outfield. And his versatility is a plus for this guy. He batted .259 and has averaged 12 homers, 30 stolen bases, 53 RBIs, and 85 runs across the past 3 seasons. So you can pretty much expect to see about a .258 batting average, 30 stolen bases, 80 runs scored, 50 RBIs, and double-digit homers, but barely. 13 homers is what RotoWire projects. Okay. Everybody good in the chat room? Leonard Donaldson loves to post about his best team. We're talking Houston Astros. Leonard Donaldson, our resident Houston Astros insider. Wow, that's interesting. This is a great tidbit. Jose Altuve is the only player in Major League history to be named an All-Star in both leagues while playing for the same franchise. That's great. Good tidbit. Good little break. All right, we're doing stolen bases here, so we're talking mid to late round stolen base outfielders. Starling Marte, okay? Now, he's 35 years old, but how can you leave him out of the talk when he stole 24 bases last year again? He steals bases like crazy. Normally, 35-year-olds do not steal this many bases, but we have to put Marte in. His ADP is 234. If you're looking for some stolen bases for your outfield, late in the draft, you can go ahead and target this guy. He is probably not going to hurt your batting average. He was only limited to 86 games last year, and he still stole 24 bases, okay? He missed time due to migraines, and then his season ended in early August due to a right groin issue. Now, he reportedly does not need any more surgery, and he will be healthy in the spring. He posted a weighted runs created plus between 108 and 134 the previous 5 seasons. His 76 was a career low, but his batted ball skills are good, okay? And his exit velocity was its highest since 2019. His hard hit rate was a career best last year. His barrel percentage was down a bit. But by the way, we're not talking about counting on this guy for a bunch of home runs or power. We're counting on him to steal more bases, all right? 24 for 28 in stolen base attempts. Current ADP, 234. He should get time every day for the Mets, as much as he can handle, and that's why we put him in for targeting stolen bases. Another stolen base guy to target, even though he only stole 16 bases last year, and he played in a career-high 133 games, John Birdie, 432 ADP, 16 stolen bases in 22 tries. I'm telling you, I don't know for sure. Now, this is a guy who's 34 years old. I put him on the list only because his ADP is the forgotten man here. But 34 years old, really saw his stolen bases drop off last year. They're projecting him for 23 stolen bases, and he does play utility role. He plays multiple positions. He's going to get competition at shortstop this year. But he did play. He played 64 games at shortstop, 41 games at third base, 15 games at second base, 19 between the corner outfield spots. So he only had 19 games at outfield, but he qualifies all over the board. He's not being drafted. He's still hitting at the top of the Marlins lineup, but I doubt he's going to be able to keep going with that. Now, we're expecting the Marlins to probably make another move before the season starts. Tim Anderson is the biggest name still on the market at shortstop, but you also have guys like Nick Ahmed, Adalberto Mondesi, Ahmed Rosario, and so depending on if the Marlins make another move, this guy could lose playing time. He is considered a utility guy, only 19 games at outfield, so he's still on the list though, because he's not being drafted at all. Here we go. We're talking about Garrett Whitlock being the closer when Kenley gets moved at the deadline. Garrett Whitlock, 3 pitches with an over 40% whiff rate. He's not the closer at the moment, but we do have some consensus in the chat room about the potential of Garrett Whitlock being the closer. Okay. Eddie Heckman talking about Felix Bautista. He underwent elbow, debridement, and ulnar nerve transposition yesterday with Dr. Keith Meister in Dallas. It's the same surgeon that performed his Tommy John surgery in October. He's still going to miss 2024, so we're done talking about him. Let's move on to batting average targets for outfielders. Batting average target, Laura, you're going to love this one. Jeff McNeil is a batting average target, ADP 315. He played second base mostly, but let me tell you, he did play 68 games in the outfielder, so that's why he qualifies as an outfielder and a second baseman. ADP 315, 288 projected batting average. You're going to get a handful of home runs, a handful of stolen bases. You'll get more runs than RBIs from this guy, but mostly you're going to get batting average. All right? McNeil needed a strong finish to the season last year just to get his average up to 270, which was actually 37 points lower than his career 307 mark, okay? 56 points lower than he hit in 2022. He's 31 years old, so his contact skills were as good as ever. His strikeout rate is 10%. He's not a great quality of contact guy, okay? He had a hard hit rate in the 5th percentile and a barrel rate in the 2nd percentile. He did hit more fly balls, which allowed him to get double digits in home runs for just the second time, but he's just not a great hard contact hitter. What he's good at is batting average. He just signed a long-term deal. His 303 batting average with 342 on base percentage from August is really closer to what we should expect in 2024. He ended the season on the injured list with a partial tear of the UCL in his right elbow, but all signs project him to be healthy for spring training. 315 ADP, looking for batting average. He qualifies as second and outfield. The next guy we already mentioned, Luis Arias. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this guy. We all know he handily won the National League batting title as well as the overall league batting title. He obliterated everybody. All right, he was one of 3 qualified hitters who walked more than he struck out, which is a huge accomplishment, okay? Especially given the fact that he only walked 35 times in 617 plate appearances, all right? He only walked 35 times, but he still walked more than he struck out. He has the highest batting average floor in fantasy baseball. His 326 career average in nearly 2,200 plate appearances. All right, 178 ADP. You're drafting Kyle Schwarber. You're drafting Luis Arias. All right. Another guy for batting average deep in league drafts, 335 ADP to be exact, is Jung-Hoo Lee, 25-year-old outfielder for the San Francisco Giants. We're expecting him to hit 290 with about a handful of home runs, double digits. We're talking about 10 home runs, 8 stolen bases, but mostly we're talking about a 290 batting average. He signed a 6-year, $113 million deal with the Giants in December after 7 excellent seasons in Korea. He's top of the scale, contact ability, Rookie of the Year, MVP, a lifetime 340 batting average. his strikeout rate, okay, 7.6% or better for 5 consecutive seasons, walking more than he strikes out in each of those seasons. All right. Now, I'm not saying that his strikeout rate could literally double and he would still be better than most of the hitters in baseball as far as batting average goes. All right. Also, he's very good outfield defensively, so he should get in the lineup every day. They signed him to 6 years, so they're going to play him. Now, don't count on a lot of power from this guy, but do count on a great batting average for a .335 average draft position, overall rank 233 at Roto Wire. Another guy to target, who this is going to change dramatically depending on who's in your draft and who they know about Riley Green. Riley Green is the 23-year-old outfielder for Detroit Tigers dealing with an injury. He had to have Tommy John surgery at the end of last season, but it was his non-throwing elbow, and they don't expect him to miss any time. They could bring him back a little slowly, which means he could be the DH, but he qualifies at outfield, which is why he's on this list. And his batting average, look, you're probably expecting, and rightfully so, expecting some power from this guy. He could hit 15 to 20 homers. He could steal double-digit bases, but don't expect that. Expect, though, a .285 batting average from this kid. Now, he didn't face a lot of lefties last year, but when he did, he hit .279 against lefties, so he shouldn't really have to be in any kind of platoon. He does hit lefties, .279 batting average against them last year, but all 11 of his homers came against righties, okay? So Detroit likes him enough to have him batting second or third in the lineup, and we should not expect that to go away. So we're talking a good amount of runs scored since his position in the batting order is going to be near the top. Also, the .284 batting average, good grief, his ADP is 169. And as I mentioned earlier, his ADP is going to vary drastically depending on who's in your draft. This guy is a fan favorite of some. He's not well known by others. So just keep an eye out for Riley Green. I would bank on 20 homers from this guy if he's healthy. That's just an added benefit, okay? Because he bats at the top of the order, so you're going to get lots of runs, and his plate discipline is excellent, which is why he falls into the batting average category. Okay. We're going to have Kerry Carpenter on the list. Give me a break here for a second. We got next on the list, Lourdes Gurriel. How could I forget my boy Lourdes, who I loved even when he was with Toronto, but he never got an opportunity to hit in the middle or the top of the batting order, so he really suffered as far as the fantasy aspect goes because he couldn't put up the counting stats to be relevant. Now he's with the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks do have a lot more power in their lineup this year, but this Lourdes Gurriel, he's got great batting skills. Last year, 24 homers, a .261 batting average, 82 RBIs, and 5 stolen bases. Career high with 24 homers, but his 106 weighted runs created plus was its lowest since his rookie campaign. However, let me tell you about Lourdes Gurriel. Lourdes Gurriel, current ADP, 225. He's ranked 158th overall. His defense in left field is stellar. 14 defensive runs saved in only 95 games. So that's going to keep him in the lineup. His batting average is projected to be about .273, 17 homers, 72 RBIs. Okay, now we're going to rely on Lourdes Gurriel at ADP 225. For RBIs, you called it. We're doing Kerry Carpenter, number 1 for RBI targets for outfielders, 198 ADP, ranked 169th overall at RotoWire. He's a 26-year-old outfielder for the Detroit Tigers. He was the 19th round pick out of Virginia Tech in 2019. He was excellent in 2023 with 20 home runs, 6 stolen bases, and a 121 weighted runs created plus 459 plate appearances. The last of his 20 homers came August 23rd, so he went for 34 games without any home runs to finish the season off, and he batted just .256 in that stretch. However, he's not good against lefties, okay? So we have to see what happens here with the platoon role, but that's really the only thing that can hurt this guy as far as getting RBIs. He's projected to hit .278 with 26 homers, 80 RBIs, 71 runs scored, and 4 stolen bases. I gotta say, Kerry Carpenter is a great target at 198 ADP. He should get a lot of time, and even if he doesn't get to pit or hit against lefties, he's still going to get those RBIs and those counting stats. He is a lefty, so kind of explains that, right? All right, another guy, we're talking RBIs now. We're doing Ian Happ, 157 ADP. He batted .248 with 21 homers, 84 RBIs, 86 runs, and 14 stolen bases. This guy contributes just about in every way. Not the batting average, but it's not a horrible batting average, okay? So he's not going to hurt you. He set career high in stolen bases last year with 14. He set a career high in RBI and a career high in runs. He also hit 21 home runs. It was the third time in 5 full big league seasons that he's eclipsed the 20 homer mark. He's learning more patience at the plate. He walked 14.6% of the time last year, which was an increase of 5 percentage points over the year before. He does bat third in the lineup, but he's not really a great fit for that spot in the order, but that's where he was primarily deployed by Chicago for the second straight year. Now he's 29 years old and his ADP is 157. He's good for 4 out of the 5 categories, and he's being overlooked for now, okay, in fantasy drafts. Another guy to target late for RBIs, not necessarily late, more the middle, 14th round, Anthony Santander. He's a switch hitter. He faced a shift 89% of the time as a lefty in 2022, but now, because there is no shift allowed anymore, he did better last year. He still set a career high strikeout rate, though it wasn't that high. His homers dropped, which is why his ADP dropped, okay? But his percentage of extra base hits increased 4 points last year, so his slugging percentage did improve. Now, he only stole 3 career bases heading into last season, but he was 5 for 6 with the new rules, right? So there is some hope that he'll run a little bit more. Don't count on stolen bases from this guy. His defense remains above average, which is what is going to guarantee this guy a spot in the Orioles lineup. He will continue to play nearly every day, even as the Orioles will continue to bring up their prospects. This guy is not really flashy in any of the 5 Roto categories, but he's not going to hurt you, and he is going to help you. He's going to help you in RBIs. He's going to help you in runs. He's going to help you in power. He's going to be average in average. He's ranked 72nd overall by RotoWire, and his ADP is a lot later at 145. So if you're looking for some RBIs, runs, home runs, all 3 of those guys he will contribute here. Anthony Santander, 145 ADP. Couple more guys on the list here for it looks like I went overboard on the runs, guys. Eloy Jimenez, 27-year-old DH for the White Sox. The problem is he might not qualify at outfield. I'm not really sure. I don't have his number of times that he played at each position. He's a DH. That's what it says, but he might qualify in the outfield too. So let's see what we got here for Eloy Jimenez, who we know is just always Eloy's coming, right? We say Eloy's coming, but Eloy is never coming because he's always injured. However, he did actually spend a good amount of time on the ball field last year. He missed 3 weeks in May. Okay, he had an appendectomy, but otherwise he was mostly healthy. He had 120 games played, which was the most since his rookie season. He sat out 42 games, which is still significant, but it's a major improvement for what he did the 2 years before that when he appeared in only a combined 139 games in 2 years. So he did miss time here and there with a calf issue, groin issue, all right? And his .272 batting average was a notable drop from .295 in 2022. He still totaled 18 homers, 64 RBIs, and 50 runs last season, while his .169 ISO was the worst mark of his career. We have an ADP of 194 for this guy. Do you remember when he was going in like the first round? He still has power potential, no doubt about it. RBIs is what we're targeting here, but he's only 27 in the prime of his life. If he's ever going to do it, he might do it this year. I'm expecting 25 homers from this guy, even though RotoWire is only expecting 21. Here's one. We have two more guys on the list for RBIs. Hunter Renfroe, outfielder who just signed with the Kansas City Royals. He's coming off of his least productive season outside 2020. He only had a .713 OPS. His 6.1% barrel rate was easily a career low, and his 88.3 mile an hour exit velocity and 39.1% hard hit rate were his lowest since his rookie season. However, he did just sign with the Kansas City Royals, okay? He's signed for a decent amount of money. I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be a huge competition for him to get regular at-bats. Come on, it has to be better than it was last year, right? 20 homers last year, which is why he's so far down the ADP. 427, not even getting drafted. You're not going to expect a huge batting average from this guy at all, but you can expect 25 homers and 70 RBIs. At ADP 427, you're not going to find that many RBIs. Now, they added him for 2 years, $13 million, and he gets to opt out after the first year if he wants to. Let me tell you what, it's a steal getting him that late in drafts. One more guy on the list, and then I appreciate everybody. Yes, Eloy is a bust, but Eloy is going super late in drafts. And if you liked Eloy early in his career, he's 27 this year. If you thought he had the skill set to draft him so early a couple years ago, don't forget that, because he's still young and he still has power. We'll see how well he does with injuries, but I'm in on Eloy. Christopher Morel, 24-year-old Cubby. Last year, .247 batting average, 26 homers, 70 RBIs, 62 runs scored, and 6 stolen bases. His ADP is currently .217, so you're getting him after the 20th round. He had a very good rookie campaign in 2022. He hit 16 homers and a .741 OPS in 113 games, but he spent the first month plus of last year in the minors. However, as soon as he got called up, he was promoted. He hit 9 home runs with a 1.354 OPS, collecting hits in each of his first 13 games after he got called up. He finished the season with a .247 batting average, a .313 on-base percentage. I told you about his home runs, RBIs, and his runs. Despite the fact that he only played in 107 games, his strikeout rate did improve. That's the good news, but the bad news is it's still 30%. He also plays poor defense, which led him to seeing most of his time at DH. He played 6 different positions, but second base was his only spot with more than 5 appearances besides the outfield. So he absolutely does qualify at outfield. And he does have the capability of playing all over the ballpark. However, he's not going to qualify for that heading into this season, and you'd be better off if they just put him at DH and left him there. He'd score a lot more fantasy love if he did that. Now, he made plenty of hard contact, 50% hard hit rate, 15.5% barrel rate. The 30% strikeouts make him volatile, which pushes his ADP down to .217, but he's good for some RBIs, good for some home runs, and a decent late-round draft pick. That's all I got for today. Lenny's over with his daughter enjoying breakfast at the Blue Bay Diner. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. I put a lot of work into it, and we'll be doing Lady and the Legend in the morning. We've done now so far some late round targets for third base, for shortstop, for second base, and now today we did outfield. I guess we got to go on, and the show must go on to do some first basemen and some catchers to target, which we did do a couple catchers to target already. But anyway, that's it. I'm right on time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you for Lady and the Legend in the morning.